Hey everyone, Mike Landis here, Public Information Officer for the City of Republic, joined with David Cameron, City Administrator. David, been a pretty long few weeks, right?
It has. It's been interesting for sure, not just for myself, but for everyone. I mean, this is not just something that's isolated to my office or my house or my family. It's nationwide, so it's been very interesting for all of us.
I know people have been stuck at home, ready to get back to work, in the office, seeing everybody. Some messaging for the employees. Why did we decide to do a video as opposed to sending an email out to everybody?
Well, number one is I like seeing everybody. It's very difficult. I don't think that my personality or the way I do it is captured in an email. It's like sitting down and trying to craft a message that's easily understandable. I'd rather see someone, hear someone say it to me than try to interpret what's being written and all the updates that need to be provided or things that are going on. It would be an extremely lengthy message, and sometimes that gets, it could get lost in translation, misunderstanding, or things of that nature. And so I wanted to answer some questions or to provide some insight as to what's going on versus in trying to capture it in a message that, it can be so long that nobody wants to read it. Personally, myself, if it's over a paragraph or too long, I probably get stuck not even reading it myself.
Well, now we know what Zoom is. We didn't even know what Zoom was a month ago. So,
Yeah, it's a gift, but I'm ready to see people again. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things, Mike, that we're working on. That I'll say just that from the beginning that I'm hoping in May, June, and July that we start doing our city huddles again, but outdoors at the parks, and using our microphone system, practicing the distancing, and still getting people together. And that our next update will actually be something where we're outside, socially distanced as necessary, but that we can communicate and be around and talk to one another, eat, and just kind of provide these updates that way. So,
sure. Obviously, we're in the stay-at-home order because of the sickness, and as we're seeing some of the numbers hopefully plateau, people are getting better. That's not as much of a risk, but what could continue to go on is the financial impact of it. Obviously, we rely on sales taxes coming in. When you've got the majority of stores closed down, that could cause an issue for us. So we've gone back and redone a lot of the budget items. If you can kind of talk about where we're standing financially, getting prepared for that impact, if you would, in the next coming weeks as we start to see how it's going to affect us in the long run.
Sure. Well, the first thing that I'll tell you, Mike, about the financial position of the city is while it's a difficult task and it's been nobody wants to go through that exercise, it's actually been a healthy exercise for the organization. And what I would tell you from the very beginning of the financial position is I have tremendous peace about where we're at. I'm not going to sit there and brag about it or somehow say or overinflate it, but I feel very strong and very healthy or very good about the position of our financial position. And I can tell you why. One, fortunately, is we were about 72 days into our fiscal year. So for those that wouldn't know, our fiscal year runs from January through December. Some organizations run from July through June. Ours is from January through December. So we were 72 days into this budget when everything kind of began to say, okay, we better stop and take a look at what's going on. So we had open positions. We had the community development director position. We had a community development director office position that was open. We had other vacant positions. We had new positions we had added to the budget. And so basically we had other capital projects that we were doing. So we were in a position for our year-to-date expenditures that we could say, okay, let's pump the brakes on spending to do that. Now, is it ideal? Part of that was the spending, merit increases, cost of living adjustments. But the primary purpose in that budget, and has been from day one, was keeping our current level of staffing at their current level of pay without doing layoffs, furloughs, or across-the-board wage reductions. And so really the budget, though, since we were based on sales tax and businesses were being asked to shut down, you have to stop and take a look at what that could be and what that is. And so basically we just took an extremely conservative approach that, hey, what could happen in our June receipts? So what people need to understand is that what is purchased in, say, March, we will not get those receipts in our budget until June. So we won't know until June or July what the impact of the shutdown has done to our financial position. So when you don't have that information, but you know what your expenses are, you know what those are immediately. And so what we did is we did some forecasting on the budget. We sent that out a week ago, but we projected what if we ran scenarios like a worst case scenario. What if we lost 30% of our revenue in June and 40% in July and then 40% in August? Again, these are extremes. There's no crystal ball as to what those numbers were going to be. But we ran what if it was this worst case scenario, and then we adjusted our budget to that. So what I would tell the employees and what I want to share is that we ran a very, very critical model to say, if this thing hit a major iceberg and we had no revenue for 6 months, we would be able to withstand it. So in perspective, it takes us $1.8 million to run the general fund for 100 days. We have roughly $3.6 million to weather this storm. So basically, I'm not going to say that we could go without money for 8 or 9 months. That'd be pretty difficult. But we still have revenue going in. We still have people shopping. We still have people going to businesses. But at the same time, we had to make provisions to say what happens if this does not recover or people don't buy. I mean, we got, what was it, in the first week, there were 6 million people filed for unemployment. We're up over mid 20% unemployment. And so we're not going to see the impact of this until, or flatten out sometime until probably 2021 would be my speculation. But I feel very confident about our position. Our employees should feel very confident about our position. And but the priority has always been and it will be the employee comes first. And so I know that sounds kind of like cliche, but our current employees and the current amount of staffing is the priority. And so keeping them at their current level of pay for as long as we can. And I believe that I don't see any interruption to that. But again, I don't know how this is going to completely play out. But we've positioned ourselves fairly well. And it didn't just start in this year's budget. Last year, many people may not understand because we don't really try to brag about it or boast about it because it might be misconstrued. But we carried over from 2019 roughly, we'll just say 350,000. It could be ballpark plus or minus 20,000 to that number. So some of the money we were able to cut or suspend spending for about $600,000 this year. So if you mix that $600,000 with the $350,000 from 2019, that's a pretty healthy nest egg for us just to kind of ride the storm out to subsidize, because we're going to see a hit. We're going to see a financial hit to the community because businesses are shut down. So obviously our sales tax numbers. One of our big sales tax generators is car lots, car dealerships. And so obviously we're not seeing those receipts. So we're just bracing for the hit. And what we'll see, and if employees want to see it, that document was released, there was a financial sustainability plan, but there was a recovery plan. And it's 8 phases for how we will recover and how we'll return spending back to it. So when will merit increases come back? When would COLA come back? If it'll happen in 2020, what would we do? All those things are provided that, hey, once the recovery takes place, we'll start moving things back in on a case-by-case basis. But to provide an update as to when we'll start filling vacant positions, I'd be shocked if it's not until 2021. However, if we see it recover faster, then we'll start making those provisions and making those decisions. But we will be providing, Mike, a monthly update to the staff at the huddles as to what the financial position is and when those decisions might be made. But right now, until June hits, and I see what March did, and then say July to see what April is. Because what if it's only a 10% loss? We don't know. And when we find that out, we'll start making decisions accordingly.
Okay. Obviously, we're all working from home. We're not at City Hall or the facilities, but business has still been going on. Talking about, we don't know what the financial position is going to be, but there's still expenditures that we've had to put forward for upgrades on technology. You were mentioning the phone system, some computer stuff we have to have to continue business, because things are going to get back to normal, if not better, before too long.
Yeah. So that would be something that would be misconstrued or misunderstood if we don't clarify that position, which is why I mentioned it to the council last night. There are still some things we're going to spend money on, like the computer switches that will help the speed of our internet speeds. And so one of those is also updating the phone system. And so someone would ask me, why in the world would we buy a brand new phone system, which we're not buying? It's kind of a lease purchase type approach, but why would we be changing out our phone system in the middle of we're not spending? Well, if you look at the back of that phone, the internet cable actually runs through that phone system. So part of the speed issues is restricted by an antiquated phone system that is slowing down the speed of the internet and the use of it into our building. Part of our internet speed delays is actually through the phone system. So upgrading the phone system actually contributes to part of our speed issues inside the city and with our software, or even with our ability to operate. And given the fact that we're in a digital world right now, especially with what's going on, you see the slowdown and then the drag on broadband and the speeds that are going on. For us to lose speed through our phone system and through our switches, it's paramount that we spend money where we can actually conduct business online versus in a virtual world. And so those are the things that you're seeing those projects take place. Another one that's ongoing is the animal shelter. It needs to be everyone be reminded that came from a capital improvement sales tax. So those funds are actually designated by the voters. So the funds that are building that animal shelter cannot be used to pay for salaries and wages in the general fund. So why that project continues, it's under contract. It's also funded by a specific designated account that we have to use for that purpose. So that project is not being delayed because it actually has the cash position to do so. And we couldn't use that money, again, for paying positions or wages or anything like that.
Yeah. And we've been posting pictures online of the progress in the animal shelters. That's a good sign. I mean, construction work has been deemed essential during all of this. So it's been nice to see that thing continuing on, looking pretty good out there, it looks like.
It is. And, in addition to our own animal shelter, there's a lot of additional construction going on. I mean, I was doing a drive around town yesterday. OTC is looking fantastic. They're going to open in August of 2020. Backwoods Golf, kind of an entertainment venue. It's going to be opening about the right time when business is going to be opening back up. Great addition to our community. But I mean, if you look at just driving around housing developments going on, and I will tell you, things have not slowed down in my office. While the majority of us have all worked remotely, I've been at City Hall every single day. It has not slowed down on the development side. The phone calls and the developments. There's been some that have delayed the timing of when their project would take place. But when it comes to commercial, residential, even some light industrial, larger warehouse facilities, we're still having ongoing discussions weekly. I'm taking just as many calls about development as I am the coronavirus. And that's exciting. The other thing about it is the US 60 and 174 project. I know MoDOT announced that they were doing some delays on some of their projects. That is not one of them. So US 60 and 174 interchange or intersection, that is set to bid open or send out bids the 1st of May. I believe they open in July. So there's still a lot of stuff going around from a development perspective that's encouraging. And some of the ideas that we have for reopening our own economy sooner rather than later, I believe will help get the ball rolling for us as well.
Yeah. Talking about things still rolling, I mean, the phone calls have not stopped. It's still happening. Obviously, we don't want to reduce any kind of concerns that we have financially going forward. But considering we're still getting all these phone calls, we're still seeing progress going forward. What do you think that's a sign of, or that's really saying about our community?
I think it's resilience. I think that people are being, the first thing that you see if you go out there, I think it's extremely civil. I think people, if you go out and about in the community, I mean, for the most part, I'm sure if you look at certain places, they say, well, that's not social distancing, they're not doing it. I think people are better and are doing a good job. They don't need government to tell them how to do that. And so I'm really proud of our community, but I think people are just exercising caution, but also exercising common sense. And so I think that by doing that, they're still saying, hey, we're going to continue to work. We're going to follow the guidelines that have been there. We're going to do the best to practice those. Just like everything else in life, we have guidelines in life that are not even associated with COVID-19. And the best thing we can do is try to do our best to comply. We're still going to fall short, right? And so there are people that are still out there trying to function, and they're going to ensure they're probably, I guarantee if you take a tape measure, they're probably not 6 feet apart sometimes. But they're trying to do their best. And I see that wherever I go. People are trying to do that. But they're trying to keep some level of normalcy to their lives. And so, and I think that the more that they're seeing, because there's not a lot of data telling us that, we get glimpses every now and then. And you would think, me being in my position, that I would get these updates every day saying, hey, these graphs, hey, it's declining. We're getting that same information as everybody else. I just think they're adults. They're reasonable people, and I think they're trying to follow those guidelines as best as possible. And I think that's the way it ought to be. And I think the reason why we're still seeing development move is they trust themselves, and I trust them to be adults and make wise, conscious decisions. Think about it. These people in the business world. They made their profit and their money off their ingenuity and creativity. It wasn't something government gave them. So their ability to keep functioning and making their businesses make money, that's how we're going to reopen. It shouldn't be government saying, hey, this is how you need to do it. They were smart enough to create the business, make a profit in that business, and they've been smart enough to sustain that business. So that's that's why I think it's going so well. Is the ingenuity and creativity of the business of the American worker is pretty stable.
Yeah, I know we're all excited to get back to work in the office, seeing everybody. Whenever everything kind of happened a month and a half ago, it was pretty quick. We were getting directives, we were getting new information. Sometimes it was confusing, but things just kind of stopped pretty quickly. But when we ramp things back up, we've been talking about as a nation, we're not going to go from 0 to 100 in one day. It's going to be an approach that's going to take a while. What is the current plan that we have for ramping things back up at our city facilities, for bringing employees back in once we're given the go-ahead to get back on with life as normal as we're hoping for?
But right on. Well, I mean, kind of like I said, with the development community or business community, our employees are adults, and I want to make sure that what we do does not put them in any harm and that they feel safe. The number one priority is if an employee is going to return back to the office in an office environment, that it's not something that says, hey, you have a hard deadline that you have to be back in the office, because we've been able to telework and it's worked fine. So the reopen strategy for the employees is we're going to take it pretty slow and say, hey, if you can telework, telework. If you want to come in Tuesdays and Thursdays and start ramping yourself back into that, we'll do it. The primary piece for the reopen, though, is that I want to start the huddles, like I started this conversation. I want to start getting people back into the organization, not necessarily for the work aspect, but for the relationship aspect of it all. So it will be, I don't suspect, Mike, that we'll see office operations return to normal until about July. Because I don't want to rush it. If someone is like, hey, I'm still reluctant to be in the office and be out and around, larger gatherings, then I'm going to be respectful of that position and say, listen, you've been able to function at home and telework. Obviously, our public safety officials, those that have public works positions, different office, I mean, they're still going to have to, it doesn't change. It's kind of been business as usual for them. And so I'm thankful for that. But it's like, but how do you reopen? It needs to be very cautious not to make, because I don't want to pressure the employee to feel like I feel pressure to be back there. But at the same time, there's going to be a sense of, hey, it's safe for you to come back to work. And it's up to the organization, us, to make sure the employee feels safe. That's going to be priority one. But priority two is just going to be like, listen, as long as we're getting our work done and business is moving forward in an efficient and effective way, however that needs to look, it will not look the same until probably, say, July, August, or September. Mm-hmm. Just want to be reasonable with the expectation of what that is. There's no one sitting there looking at the time clock. As everyone remember, we got rid of time clocks. I don't want to just completely disregard them, but we don't sit around and watch every little minute of every single day. Again, these are adults that work for us that do a fantastic job. We're where we're at because of their creativity and ingenuity as well. And so I trust when they feel it's safe and when we believe it's right, then we'll call them back into the office to do so. But there's no sense of urgency just to start driving people here, because there's no one driving an expectation like, why isn't City Hall open? Why isn't our lobbies open? We will all collectively do that. Mike, what I would tell you is we'll probably be communicating that on a week-by-week basis or every other week through video updates, either myself, Jared, Lisa, or anyone yourself. Anyone will be providing that information.
Yeah. The focus, obviously, the last month and a half has been on the health, the physical health of the employees. I mean, that's why we're working from home. Things have been ramped down to keep, our employees safe, people in the community safe. But we're hearing from people about mental health issues as well. I mean, the stress of it, worries and stuff. So that's going to be something we're going to be seeing a lot more of going forward, is just the overall impact on the emotions and mental health of people. But we've got programs available that we want to remind folks of in our family, that if you need help, there's something there for you.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned before, the employee assistance program is something that was pretty near and dear to our hearts. Being as someone personally that you've ever gone through battles of depression or difficulties, and you just need someone to reach out to and talk to them about it, it's real. And so there's not a day goes by that in some form or fashion, that I'm not seeing the impact of this pandemic from an emotional state. I mean, I see it on the faces. I see it in the conversations, or hearing in the conversations. It's real. It's a real struggle. And so there's no shame. There's no failure in reaching out to our employee assistance program. And so I would encourage employees, utilize that. If you just want to talk to somebody about your financial position, or just, I mean, it's just a challenge when you're seeing the same landscape every single day and it's not changing. That can be difficult. For me, it's very fortunate. I'm not stuck at home. I get to come to my office and I get to see different things. I get to talk to different people. And so, where that situation may be very different for my wife, and I'm seeing that, it's just, wow, it's a struggle. And so I'm thankful that people have others to talk to, but some people just don't. Or some people think it's wrong, or it's a shameful thing to reach out for help. But I would tell you, it's one of the strongest acts of strength you can do, because the enemy wants us to get isolated into ourselves, and that we would be like, get us alone, and where we think we're all alone in this situation, and we're not. Everybody's dealing with this, and they should reach out for those resources. The other thing, Mike, that I think that is very important, that we cannot just, and this is a blind spot for me, is, yes, I can't remember, it's well over 25% now, maybe closer to 30% unemployment. I think what gets lost is that we think, well, I still have my job. There's, it's not affecting me, so it's obviously not affecting. There are people every day, and I'm hearing about that part of it, that cannot pay their utility bill. And there's going to be a struggle, and we're going to have to help those folks out. But at the same time, I don't know exactly if we don't have employees that they may have a loved one or significant other, someone that's helping with a secondary income, that maybe that's been impacted, or childcare, because they're it's really impacted their financial position. And so one of the things that we're working on right now is putting together an employee committee that, hey, if someone has a financial need, be it their own utility bill, or their spouse or a loved one lost, or they depend upon another income to help them, and that's been suspended or altered significantly, is those, especially for those that that we're in a position to help at the city, because we still have our positions. We want to put together a program that, and an application completely anonymous. I wouldn't know who gave, and I wouldn't know who's requesting it. But there's no shame in going through a rough patch associated with this virus and asking for help. And as an organization, we need to do that for one another. And so I think that's where we draw our strength. And so there's going to be some information come out about that, not only on the mental health, but the financial health. If somebody needed some help with some groceries or a gift card to Walmart, maybe a little rent support, I can't promise it, but it would be a financial contribution from all the employees that wanted to participate, no pressure to participate. And again, it'd be completely anonymous. I wouldn't know who it is. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at doing, that we're going to do that. We're going to find a way that we can help people that need it, because it's been a rough stretch. We want to make sure everybody, I don't want to hear of a family going without food whenever there's plenty of people in this organization are willing to help.
I mean, I know it's almost a cliche saying at this point, but we're all in this together. I mean, we really are.
Yeah, we are. And I'll say this, Mike, I like to say it this way and everything we do. This is a glass half full. This is an opportunity. This is a season for us to grow. I know it's difficult, and it's changed it, a lot of what happens in my own office, but I still write goals for myself. I still challenge myself as to say, listen, I see that we're going to get better and we're stronger. If you look at how we're functioning now, and you're looking at the fact that we're still operating, we're still doing our business from home, we're still conducting council meetings. I mean, we had our first planning and zoning meeting last week, and so we're still doing development, and things are moving on. I don't see this as, is it a challenge? I don't ignore the challenge. But usually in my life and in my past, usually in the most darkest, most difficult days when I thought this is terrible, is when I grew the most. I don't feel it right now, but I sense when we come out of this, we're going to be so much stronger than what we are. But I will tell you, and I want to assure the employees, they're the priority. In that budget that we did, there'll be some that I'm certain, it's disappointing that we didn't do the raises. We didn't do the COLAs and the steps. But it was meant for protecting the overall integrity of every single employee. And so understand something, that I feel very good about that financial position and our strength in keeping our team together and solid. And so, I see this as a season that, when the storm passes, we're going to take right off and go again, and we're going to start getting some things done. We still are, but it's definitely slowed us down a little bit. But our vision and our intensity has not wavered at all.
Well, David, we mentioned we're going to be doing these video updates pretty regularly, but for this installment, is there any additional thoughts you want to give out to the Republic family here?
I'm going to say the same thing I say to employees all the time, is that it's not just a matter that I appreciate our staff. I love our staff. There's such a commitment, as someone that was obviously that started off. I didn't start off as the city administrator. I was working at the wastewater plant. I just relate very well with the challenges that employees face and the difficulties that are there. And it's on the forefront of my mind every single day. And they're what make us go. And it's what motivates me every day in what we're doing, and every decision that we make, is that the very reason where this city is where it's at and where it's positioned is because of our employees. It's not a cliche to me. I'm not politically motivated. I don't run for office. What drives me is the people and leading them every single day. And it's a privilege to lead this staff. I love leading this city. I love being a part of it. There's no place that I'd rather be with the people that I'm associated with and the people I get a chance to lead. And the creative minds that I see that have come out of this have not disappointed me whatsoever. But, I want to convey to the staff just how much I appreciate them and just love each and every one of them and want nothing but the best for them. And we'll get through this together. I'm convinced of that. And we'll work together to navigate through it. But our best days are ahead of us, Mike. Our best days are ahead of us. And when I see the development that's going on, my intensity and my commitment to our vision and our direction is not changed. And it's only getting stronger. And that's attributed to our employees and the motivation that they provide me through their creativity and their work every day. So that's what I would do.
Driving around town, it's slow, but not going to stay that way for much longer, obviously. So.
No, and like I said, I can't stand writing emails. A big old wall. I want to see people. I want to get out there. We're going to start having those huddles soon. And May, they're coming in May.
All right, looking forward to it. David, thanks again, and we will talk to you again soon, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.